We continue with the second chapter of the book of Ezra. Ezra, again, he's known as Ezra Sofer. He was a scribe. Talmud likes to compare him in certain places to Moses, to Moshe, says that the Torah could have been given by Ezra. So great was his influence. The Jews who come back, we'll see many of the names of the families in today's chapter. They were not very well versed. They were not very devout. In yesterday's chapter, we learned about the 70 years that Yirmiyahu had predicted for the empire of Babylon had come to an end. Cyrus had defeated the Babylonians, and now the Persian Empire is back, or is the world power in the Middle East, Asia Minor, etc., etc. And Cyrus gives permission to the Jews to return to Jerusalem and rebuild the temple of God. So yesterday, if you weren't here, the Cyrus cylinder is worth looking up, a clay tablet that was found in um, in Babylon that accords in many ways with what is described by Ezra in the first chapter of the book of Ezra. Again, if you don't Google it later, the Cyrus cylinder, you can see it in the British Museum. So let's look at the second chapter now. So which Jews went up? So we're told, V'ele b'nei Amedina olim mishvei hagola sher hagla Nebuchadnezzar melech Bavel v'yeshiv Yerushalayim Yehuda ish le'iro. These are the people of the province who came up from among the exiles who were exiled by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who brought them into exile, those who returned to Jerusalem and Judah, each to his own city, right? So Cyrus is the undoing of Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar takes them out. Yesterday we said Cyrus says to the Jews, you can bring the vessels from the Beit HaMikdash, from the house of God, back up to Jerusalem with you. He is the undoing. He's the one who's allowing the Jews to go back to Jerusalem from Yehuda and Binyamin, the tribes. And who's going? Verse 2, Asher Baum Zerubbabel, Yeshu, Nechemiah, Seraya, Elaya, Mordechai, Bilshan, Mispar, Bigvei, Rachum, Bana, Mispar, Anshe Am Yisrael, who came up with Zerubbabel, Yeshua, Nehemiah, Seraya, Realia, Mordechai, Bilshan, Mispar, Bigvai, Richa, Bano, all the men listed here. Is this the Mordechai? Of course, the rabbis say that this is the Mordechai from the story of Megillat Esther. It's not clear that that is the case. The most important person in this list in terms of this period is the first name mentioned, Zerubbabel, direct descendant of King David. We read about him, learned about him back in the books of Haggai and Zechariah. He was the political head, probably something he was called I believe, a pachat, which probably means something like a pasha, a local clan leader. He was the political leader at this time for the Jewish people. And again, a direct descendant of King David, a grandson of previous kings of Yehuda. And who are these people? Very exciting now. Bnei Parash, Alpayim Mea Shivim Ushnaim. Sons of Parash, 2,172. Bnei Shefatya, Shlosh Meot Shivim Ushnaim. Shefatya's family, 372. Bnei Arach, Shva Meot Chamisha V'Shivim. 775. Bnei Pachat Moav, Livnei Yeshu, Yoav, Alpayim Shmona Meot Ushnaim. Asar, the sons of Pachat Moav. It doesn't mean they were Moavites. That's where they were living. Are 2,812 Bnei Elam, Elef Matayim Chamishim Va'arba, 1,254 from the family of Elam, Bnei Zatut, Shal Meot V'Arbaim V'Chamisha, 945 from Zatu, Bnei Zakai, Shva Meot V'Shishim, 760 from his family, Bnei Vani, Sheshmot Arbim Ushnaim, 602 from the house of Bani, Bnei Vai, Sheshmot Esrim Ushlosha, 623 from the house of Bavai, Bnei Azgad, Elef Matayim Esrim Ushnaim, 1222 from Azgad, Bnei Adonikam, 666, Bnei Vigvai, 2,056, 2056, Bnei Adin, 454, Bnei Ater, Lichizkiah, Shim Ushmona, Ater Chizkiah, 98, Bnei Veitzai, 323, 323, Bnei Yora, Meoshnayim Asar, 112, Bnei Chashum, Matayim Esrim Ushlosha, 223, Bnei Gibar, Tishim V'Chamisha, 95, Bnei Veit Lachem, Mea Esrim Ushlosha, sons of Bethlehem, 123, Anshe Nitofa, Chamishim V'Shisha, from Nitofa, 56, Anshe Anatot, Mea Esrim Ushmona, 128 from Anatot, Bnei Azmavet, Arba'im Ushnayim, 42, Bnei Kiryat Arim, Kfira, Ve'erot, Shva Meot V'Arba'im Ushlosha, so 743, Bnei Arama, Begava, 621 from these. Anshe Michmas, 122. Michmas 122. Anshe Veitel Va'ai 223. 223. Bnei Nevo 52. 52 from Nevo. Bnei Magbish 156. 156. Bnei Elam Acher 1254. 1254. Bnei Charim 320. 320. Bnei Lod Chadir Vono 725 from Lod. 700 and Hadid and Ono 725. Bnei Recho 345. The sons of Jericho 345, which is probably the most interesting about all of them, because of course Jericho, the city of Yericho, was never supposed to be rebuilt, and which was seen as a terrible thing that the city of Yericho was rebuilt. But here we see that there were Jews then, once it was rebuilt, who were from there. B'nai Sinaa Shloshet Alafim B'sheish Meot U'Shloshim. That's verse 35, 3,630. Okay, so now we're going to a different part of the list, which is going to be to the priests, to the Kohanim. Up to that point, right, we have the names, the numbers of the families from various towns. We have names of families, we have names of and places you recognize, and now we'll have the priests, and after we have the Kohanim, we'll have the Leviim, etc., etc. So let's start with the Kohanim. Verse 36, HaKohanim b'nei Yedaya Levet Yeshua, Shameot Shivim Ushlosha 973, Bnei Imer 1052, from Imer 1052, Bnei Pashchor 1247, 1247, Bnei Charim 1057, 1017. So those are the Kohanim that total about 4,000 people. And now we have Halavim in verse 40, Bnei Yeshua, V'Kadmiel Bnei Hod. V'ya Shivim V'Arba'a, Levites 74, first family, Hamishorim. Bnei Asaf, Mea Esrim Ushmona, the singers, the sons of Asaf, 128. Remember the family of Asaf, especially from the book of Tehillim, where about, I don't remember exact, but about 10 chapters or so, in the 70s or so of Tehillim, are the Mizmorei Asaf. Asaf, originally a singer of the Levites mentioned at the time of David, but it seems to be a clan, a guild, a family. It's not clear. Is it a group that you have to make it into, or is it all descendants of this Asaph? And we still see that family around during the time of Chizkiah, hundreds of years after David. So these are the singers, 128 from these Leviim. Bnei Shoarim, Bnei Shalom, Bnei Ater, Bnei Talmon, Bnei Akov, Bnei Chatita, Bnei Shovi, Hakol Mea Shloshim V'Tisha. So here we have the gatekeepers, 139. Hanetinim, Bnei Tzicha, Bnei Chasufa, Bnei Tabaot. So the temple servants, Bnei Keros, Bnei Siaha, Bnei Padon, Bnei Livana, Bnei Chagava, Bnei Akuv, Bnei Chagav, Bnei Shalmai, Bnei Hanan, that was verse 46, Bnei Gidel, Bnei Gachar, Bnei Ra'aya, Bnei Ritzin, Bnei Nekoda, Bnei Gazam, Bnei Uza, Bnei Faseach, Bnei Vesai, Bnei Osna, Bnei Mu'unim, Bnei Nifusim, Bnei Vakbuk, Bnei Chapucha, Bnei Charchur. That was verse 51. We're just giving the names of all the different families. Bnei Vatzlut, Bnei Mechida, Bnei Chorsha, Bnei Varkos, Bnei Sisra, Bnei Tamach. It's a very interesting one that we have somebody, Bnei Sisra, the children of Sisra. Sisra was the general who was killed by Yael during the time of the book of Shoftim. So think that there is somebody named Sisra of our people. I guess it's kind of like you have Israelis who name their kids Nimrod. Bnei Netziach, Bnei Chatifa, excuse me. Bnei Avdei Shilomo, Bnei Sotai, Bnei Hasofer, Bnei Peruda was 55, 56, Bnei Ya'ala, Bnei Darkon, Bnei Gidel, Bnei Shefatya, Bnei Chatil, Bnei Pocheret Hatzvayim, Bnei Ami, Kol Hanetinim, Bnei Avdei Shlomo, Shlosh Meot Chishim Ushnayim. The total of the temple servants and the sons of Solomon's servants were 392. So these are what we see, in this list is a lot of the people have relationships with the temple. Kohanim, Leviim, these people who worked in the temple. So a lot of them are ones who had a sign. Now, interesting about the Netinim is it's not clear the Netinim are uh, Jewish or not, and they just became sort of temple laborers. They had a low social status, and goes back all the way back possibly to the groups back in the book of Yehoshua when the Jews go in the first time and they're tricked by Givonim, they're tricked by people who say they're from far away, but really they're from up close, but Yehoshua allows them to remain. And let's continue verse 59. Ve'ela olim mitel melach, tel chorsha, kruv adan, imer, velo yachlu lagid beit avotam b'zaram, im mi-Yisrael heim. And they're following our people who came up from all these different places, and they were unable to tell whether father's house and descent were Israelites. They felt the need, they felt that God had blessed the Jewish people, but it wasn't clear their true Jewish lineage, which is right important to think about. This week we had this terrible shooting in D.C., and one of the people was identifies as a Christian lover of Israel, served in the Israeli army. And so we see it here. There are people who are coming up with the Jewish people. It's not described in the way that it is described in the Torah, where the people who come out of Mitzrayim with the Jews, the Erev Rav, and then maybe they didn't, maybe they caused trouble. Continuing verse 60, B'nai Dilaya, B'nai Tovia, B'nai Nikoda, 652 from these families, 652. U'B'nai HaKohanim, B'nai Chavaya, B'nai HaKotz, B'nai Barzilai, Asher Lakach Mibrot Barzilai, Giladi, Shava, Ikra Al Shmam. Priests, we have the sons of Chavaya, we have the sons of Chakos, sons of Barzilai, who married a daughter of Barzilai and taken his name, Barzilai. We have those family of Barzilai all the way back at the time of David. Ela bikshu tavam hamit yachshim velo nimsu vayigo alu minakuna. They searched for their genealogical records, but they could not find them. So they were disqualified from the priesthoods. This groups of people wanted to be priests, but they were not allowed to be priests. Here we have now identified a person. Not exactly clear who this person is in verse 63. Vayomar hatir shata lahem asher lo yochlu mikodesh hakadoshim ad amod kohen leurim v'turim. The tir shata, it's not clear who that is. Later on, we'd say that there are those who explain that it's Nehemiah. Nehemiah, second half of this book or separate book, is Nehemiah. Now we're reading Ezra. Nehemiah and Ezra, again, Ezra is referring back 50 years, 75 years before he was born, before he lived, about the Jews returning to Israel in the years 539, and afterwards, we'll see later, this book goes into the year 519 and 516. So if this is Nehemiah, this is a later statement that Nehemiah makes, that the people, these gentlemen who have some sort of priestly lineage, but it's not clear, they cannot eat from the holy things until a Kohen Gadol comes with the Urim V'Tumim, with the piece of paper, with that's God's name inside the breastplate, with the stones that were worn by the high priest that God communicated with and would identify whether they were true Kohanim or not. Here we continue, verse 64, Kol Akal Ke'achad Arba Ribo Alpayim Shloshmeot Shishim. What's the total sum? A paltry sum, 42,360. In addition to that, Milvad Ma'avdehem V'Amotehem Ela Shivim Shivat Alafim Shloshmeot Ushloshim V'Shiva V'Lahem Mishorim Umishorot Ma'atayim. Not counting the male and female servants, that was 7,337, and also 200 male and female singers. Suseim Shvameot Shloshim V'Shisha Pardeim Matayim Arbim V'Chamisha. Their horses 736, their mules 245. Maleim Arbameot Shloshim V'Chamisha. Chamorim Sheshet Alafim Shvameot V'Esrim, 435 camels, 6,720 donkeys. Mershei Avot B'Voam Leveit Adonai Asher B'Yerushalayim Hitnavdu Leveit Elohim Lamido Al Mechono. Some of the chiefs of the clans, that when they got to Jerusalem, they brought offerings and they were ready to build the house of God. They came back. That was the express reason why they came back. Kimonim sheish ribiaot ve'elef v'chesed manim chameshet alafim chtonot kohanim me'ah. In this accord, they donate to the treasury 61,000 drachmas and 5,000 minas and 100 priestly robes. So the people came back and they dwelt in their towns that were all all around. And so we see here we have a group that wants to. It's a small number, to be honest. It's considered a very small number. That number about 42,360, and some of them include people who are in even aren't even Jewish, and it's not seen as a great return. I think when we discussed the book of Esther, Megillat Esther, so there's general understanding in the book of Esther. It was traditionally understood that it happens in between the time period of the first temple and the second temple. There are many contemporary scholars and rabbis who teach Tanakh that believe that it actually happened early part of the second Beit HaMikdash, and that book is very much about how the Jews abandoned Jerusalem. They didn't go back. In the beginning of this book, in yesterday's chapter, we saw that Cyrus said, "Those of you who don't go back, send silver, send gold, send things back with them." But in this chapter, we see at least some people are going back, and we see it's very much directed and caring about the Beit HaMikdash. People who Kohanim, Leviim, possible Kohanim, people who are not even Jewish but were connected in their lives, had dedicated it to the temple. And I guess to say, let's conclude with it, at a time where we have, just yesterday, people who worked in the Israeli embassy who maybe according to Jewish law were not fully 100% halachically Jewish. As I said, one identified fully as a Christian, as is public information. We have people who are attached to our people, who are people who support our people, who help our people, and some of those people returned at the time of from Bavel with when Cyrus gave them permission, and they are acknowledged here. And I think it's very, very important that we acknowledge these people as well. Throwing your lot in with the Jewish people, even if you don't fully convert, is not a simple thing. We are not beloved on the street, in case you didn't remember. So remember those two people, the names Yigal and remember Milgram was the last name, and very sad thing, but we see that you stand with us, you're with us, you're part of us, and we need to recognize that, much like it's recognized here in the book of Ezra.